Michelle.
Hello, Geordie. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Good to see your shining little face again.
Oh, don't. I'm always shiny. It's not a good thing. It's called hormones.
How's it going this week? Have you had a tough week? Poor Michelle, stuck in that tiny little flat during second lockdown in Switzerland. Oh, you poor things. You and Andres in that tiny little flat with only the Matterhorn to look at, skiing all day, sleeping until noon. It must be so hard for you.
It's a terrible life. Such a fancy little bitch that I am. No, I know. It's been great. Lockdown hasn't been a hardship. How's it been for you?
Same old, because luckily the kids are back at school. I don't have to homeschool them, which is good. I don't like that.
Have you had any good visits? Is Hot Posty coming round these days?
Hot Posty, yeah, I've seen him a few times. I've gone off him, Michelle.
Yeah, okay.
Gone off him.
What's happened?
Nothing. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's very sweet. She's lovely, but the initial buzz has gone. Yeah.
So he sees you in full no makeup now. Rollers.
I don't care if I'm in a tracksuit. Exactly. Well, I told you that time he came to the door and I was like, oh, if I'd known it was you, I would have gotten changed. I'm wearing my pajamas. He said, I've seen worse.
Oh!
What does that mean?
I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it was a compliment.
I've had a really hard time this week. I have to accept that I need to wear... When I'm not wearing my glasses, I'm wearing my contacts, right? And when I'm wearing my contacts, I still can't read very well. So I need to still wear my glasses at a certain angle so I can see things. And also, I've got really fat thumbs and fingers. So when I'm texting, you may have noticed that there's quite a lot of
errors.
Text errors, yeah. I sent a message to a friend of mine this week asking if he had been, he's a married man. I asked if he'd been furloughed again. And luckily, I reread it before I sent it because it said it turned the word furloughed, which is a ridiculous word anyway, into "Are you dumping her again?"
No.
So glad I reread it.
Oh my God, you could have caused marital strife.
I could have. Oh my God, I could have been in so much trouble.
Oh dear.
So luckily I rectified that mistake. But from now on, I've got to I can't just flip, like tip, tap, and then flip it off, like send off the text. I have got to take my time. Or I've discovered talking into the phone.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It's so much better.
So much better.
Because honestly, autocorrect, I know there's all like, holy shit, autocorrect or whatever those websites are, but it does fuck with your texts.
Yes.
And you've also been quite funny at times.
I'm sorry.
I wish I could remember the worst ones, but no.
Often I get people writing things back with question marks and exclamation marks and saying, I don't understand what you're trying to say.
I don't think you're the only one. I think you should just talk in emojis. like all the kids. All the kids do it.
Like the kids. Listen, so we're back again. This is our podcast. It's called...
Eavesdroppin.
And it's a couple of friends, Michelle and me, Geordie, just talking about anything we like. And it can be supernatural, super
random,
and super normal.
Yay.
I'm getting it.
Yes.
It's our catchphrase.
So tell me, Geordie, what on earth are we talking about today?
Well, before we talk about what we're talking about today, which is kind of an extension of last week's, last week we talked about, it was the spirits, wasn't it? Spirits and apparitions.
Do we have more apologies to make?
We have a few apologies, just a few things to just, touch upon. For a start, college. Was that the episode where we talked about college? You tried to explain to people what a college was.
Yeah,
it's a learning institution. I made fun of you. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's because in England there is no O levels anymore. It's called GCSEs.
Told ya.
And I knew that, but I
didn't say that
at the time because I'd forgotten. No, you called it O levels.
And A levels.
A levels is what I called it.
Okay.
A level college, which it probably is the most similar thing to college in Canberra. And in America, the closest thing I could find was possibly it's sophomore or junior. I don't know. That's all I could find out. And I just wanted to explain to people what Knockdown Ginger was.
Yeah, I have no idea still. No, I do, but it's like the naughty stuff.
I bet you've played it.
I don't know. I've never.
Victorian scruff.
No, I've never popped a poo on someone's doorstep. But that's how you explained it. And then I
think that's a different game.
Oh dear.
That's a different one. It's called Knockdown Ginger or Ding Dong Ditch. You know that one. Or Chapdoor run chappies. I don't
What
know why
the
it's called
hell?
that. Or knock, knock, zoom, zoom. So if that gives you an idea of what it is, it's basically knock on the door and run away. So somebody opens the door and no one's there. Boring. Whatever.
They are ridiculous names. I think he made them up.
I didn't. I found them on Wikipedia.
Who says that's real? Who says that's true?
Well, listen, last week we were talking about apparitions, and you had that great story from your friend Ben from college.
Hi, Ben.
And hi, Ben. I hope he's listening. He's probably...
No, never
I'd say
again.
He's got his back turned and his arms tightly folded at this point, especially at me. But there was also Pandora, Portugal, who wrote in. She had a third experience, which I didn't think was appropriate for the spirits. It's more of a, let's call it a haunting or a visitation or something.
Spooky.
And and I had a very similar experience as well. So I've got a story here. Shall I just read it out to you?
Yeah, go on. I'm listening.
Let's get straight into it. All right. Whilst living in another flat, Pandora would wake up with the feeling of somebody waving their hand in front of her face when she was asleep. Try it with your eyes closed. You will notice that somehow you can sense the movement, so like flapping in front of your face. She also felt she was being watched while in her bedroom, as Pandora says, like two bigger eyes.
Oh, that's a little creepy voyeur. You know, I had this happen to me when I was young.
What, two big eyes staring at you?
No.
Through the peephole?
There was always
there was
always a peephole. No, did you ever see that movie, Bad Ronald?
God, yes. Oh my God, that's horrible.
With the peephole, and he gets trapped behind the walls, and the family.
He's locked under the stairs, isn't he?
No, they built him a separate room, and then the family died and moved out, and a new family moved in, and he puts peepholes in the walls. Oh my God, I hadn't remembered that.
Horrific.
If Steph, my sister, is listening to this,
is that Australian?
Bad Ronald. She knows this movie, but no. So anyway, when I was living in my family home, little kid in the suburbs in Canberra. I had my own room, and it was near the gate, and I swear more than once there was some dude looking through my window, because we didn't have curtains, because it was behind the gate.
Oh no!
Yes, and so when you feel like someone's watching you, maybe they are, because that's what happened.
They quite often
anyway,
are.
Back to Pandora.
So she felt these two big eyes staring at her. So she started having problems sleeping. Every night she would hear groups chanting and percussion instruments that started quietly and then became louder.
Do you know, again, I had something weird like this happen to me. But no, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would hear the cutlery going like mad in the cutlery drawer. All the time.
Oh.
Like
when you were growing up?
Yes, when I was growing up as a kid, somebody with their hands just rattling all the cutlery. Anyway, back to Pandora.
Wasn't it? Was it Jen just doing the washing up after a very long day with 4 children?
Could be. Hi, Jen.
You're just like flat on your back as usual.
Back to Pandora. Sorry, Pandora.
Back to Pandora. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so the sound would start quietly and then get louder, and a vision. She'd have like a vision to accompany it. Of a crowd in an open area dancing and chanting around a fireplace. It would manifest, and Pandora would see herself amongst it all, trying desperately to get out. So this woman is trapped in some awful like waking nightmare or something. Pandora has a Catholic background, so she could only think of praying, but she kept forgetting the prayers that normally she knew by heart. Sometime later, with Pandora's little mind praying like crazy and hearing herself breathing heavily so she could finally wake herself up, that's all I've written. I don't know why that sentence is like it is. Somebody wasn't paying attention. Anyway, next line says, that was every night. So she had big bags under her eyes. Other unexplained events occurred, and ultimately it ended once and for all one night when she had some sort of panic attack. With her heart beating wildly and the morbid chill of impending death, she saw a black shadow on the ceiling of her room. Now, this actually gives me shivers. I don't like this at all. It's bloody scary.
Shivers me timbers.
So anyway, this thing's on her ceiling. She swore at it, and it looked down at her with hatred. Pandora found this part hard to explain, as it was a shadow, but she knew what she saw, a bit like Ben last week. She knew what it was. And they talked.
What?
They talked to each other. Pandora doesn't remember anything about what they discussed, apart from her asking for it to leave her alone. And she said then it did.
Oh.
Now, the reason why I find this story so frightening is because when I first moved to London, I had a very similar experience.
What the hell?
And I've been hinting at this. I'm sure I've told you about it before, but let me tell you again.
You probably told me and I forgot.
Yeah, it's a bit like you when you're sitting down in front of a very riveting TV program. You're like, oh, I can't wait to watch this. I want to be, up to date with the latest episode. And then obviously you fall asleep or it goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, that's my life. So what happened?
I'll tell you. I had a very similar experience when I first lived in London in a squatted council flat on Great Titchfield Street. It was called Linton House, I believe. I was 19 years old and living in a one-bedroom flat with my friend and travelling companion, Joe. We spent our days busking for change and our nights partying with friends at the big squats nearby. So there's a lot of squatting at that time. We had a great time, a good group of friends who we're still in touch with, most of them actually. The Vicarage was one of them on Great Osnaburg Street and Googe Place, number 13 and 14, I think they were. They were knocked together at the top. Joe and I had just returned from hitchhiking to Glastonbury and whilst there had taken a lot of LSD, mushrooms and smoked a ton of dope.
Oh my
and eaten
God,
some as
you
well.
naughty girls.
One by one, we lost it. Her first, then me, and I lost it spectacularly. But in the end, it was fine, It's a shame because The Cure were playing and Sinead O'Connor. It was a really weird experience, actually. The next day, when I finally came down to earth, I had such a terrible night. The next day, I had to go and see The Cure because I used to love them loads, and I went and I believe I saw them. I can't remember, but I must have seen them because I remember waiting for Sinead O'Connor to finish. She was on before them. That's it. And I turned around. Behind me was my dear friend from from Maruya High School.
What?
Russell Sawyer was standing right behind me. I was like, "What the hell are you doing here?" It was magical.
Was it a hallucination?
No, it was
okay,
real.
Okay,
it was really there.
Really there. Wow.
It was just so odd. And I was like, mate, I can't even talk. I'm not very well. Anyway, so that was a hell of a ride. And we got back from there and we were living in our little place. And I think it was summer. So it wasn't long after Glastonbury. And so I put this experience absolutely put it down to losing my shit on LSD, basically. So I'd be napping. And I could hear, like in the day, I didn't have anything really to do. I think Joe had a job or something, and she'd be out all day socialising or whatever she was doing. And I'd be having a nap, say, in the middle of the day, and I could hear, it was the World Cup 1990 at the time, and I could hear it going on, the neighbours, yelling at the TV and stuff. It was very exciting.
Was that Italia? It was Italy, wasn't it?
I believe it was, yeah. It was very exciting. And the first time it happened, I was lying on one side and I could hear from the corner of the room, it sounded very similar to what Pandora said. It sounded like people rattling change in their hands and like little vuvuzelas, those things they play at the football matches, those things. Lots of layers of sound all coming from a corner of the room. And it came snaking down. I could hear it snaking down. I couldn't move though. I was awake enough to understand what was going on. Thinking, am I dreaming? Am I awake? I can't move, but I feel like I'm consciously thinking, so I must be awake, but I just can't move.
Were your
so
eyes
this noise
open?
Came down till it was so close to my ear that my ear started to kind of crackle a bit. It was painful. It was hurting. And it went away and came back a couple of times. And eventually, like Pandora, I could hear myself breathing to try and get myself, to move. And eventually I heard the door go and I heard Joe walk in. And I thought, oh, thank goodness she's here. I'll be able to snap myself out of it now. And I felt her put her hand on my head, yet still I could not move. A couple of minutes later, I finally shook myself out of it. And I called her name. She wasn't there. 2 minutes later, she walked in the door.
Oh.
I said, had you already been here? And she's like, no, I've just come in now. I told her, she was very sweet. She was very, you could tell she didn't believe me. But she was like, okay. You're probably just having a bit of a, what
calm down. It's calm down.
Yeah, or a repeat performance or whatever. Anyway, so something was still in my system because it was like days after. There was no sleep to be had in Glastonbury. We were mental. Anyway, so that was that. The next occasion, there was a few other experiences that it got to the point where I couldn't even sleep alone. So Joe and I would sleep on this double mattress in the front. It was a one-bedroom flat. There was a bed in the front room, and we'd sleep together. And a couple of times, because she'd be out there entertaining people or whatever. I had a job actually. I remember now. I did have a job, and I had to get up early the next morning, so I'd be in there sleeping. And there's a little radio that we found on the road. It didn't work. We tried plugging it in. It didn't work. One night it woke me up because it was like all over the shop, kind of tuning itself up and down.
Pirate radio.
And I thought it was her. Yeah, I thought it was her fucking around. So I yelled and they came in. Her and her two buddies came in. And again, we tried the radio. Nothing worked. I was like, oh, God, what's going on with me? I started to get a bit like Pandora. Couldn't sleep. I looked like I had bags under my eyes. I was really struggling. It was awful. I was so unhappy. And the final thing happened. And I'm going to let Jo take over from me at this point because her recollection of this. Because you remember, I don't think she believes me at this point.
Because this does...
Oh, I didn't put
this does sound like, like a bad, like... LSD kind of flashback.
What a dickhead. Right, bear with me, please, caller. She's called it creepy experience.
So tell me, what happened? What does Jo say?
I'll tell you. I will tell you as soon as I found it. I'm such an idiot. Someone didn't do their homework. Okay, here we go. Creepy experience. The year was 1990, and Geordie and I were living in a little flat not far from Oxford Street, so I've told you that bit already, I can cut that out. We had acquired it after a chance meeting in a pub with a woman who gave us the key to the front door. She'd been offered it as a housing commission and was desperate to be able to refuse it and not go to the bottom of the list. Oh, this is a bit boring, I won't say that. Blah, blah, blah. Nice community. So, we had a nice community in the area, but as the weeks went on, Geordie became increasingly unable to cope with being home alone. She complained that there were times when she would experience a kind of paralysis. Her eyes shut, she would hear people moving around the room, gossiping and laughing like it was a party.
in your mind.
Or simply a radio on very close. These episodes would only last short whiles. The noises would stop abruptly and she would be able to open her eyes again and move. And she was terrified. That's true. I hadn't heard or felt anything but believed Geordie, though with no real idea of how frightened she must have been. Though then I had an experience I have never forgotten. Geordie had asked a friend, Moira, whose grandmother had the sixth sense, for help and invited her round on the day in question. It all went badly as Moira refused to even come in and had given us some advice. If anything happens, she said, repeat to yourselves, by the grace of God be gone, and you'll be safe. I don't remember.
Is Moira a bit witchy?
Probably, yes, I'd say so.
I didn't know that about you, Moise.
I'm sure she'd love to be described as that. I think she's got some crystals, That night, Geordie was upset. She hated her job and she and I were arguing a lot. She was asleep when I came to bed and I lay there on my back in the dark trying to dream. All of a sudden, an old woman walked into my head. That's the only way I can describe it. And started ranting at me. I remember her clearly telling me that I had to put someone's eyes out. I knew with certainty that this was not my brain making stuff up, but it was an external force communicating with me and she was not present.
She's an East End geezer.
What?
Get your eyes out. She's an East End geezer.
Pluck your eyes out.
Eyes out.
My mind instinctively began reciting the phrase Moira had suggested and all hell broke loose. I had reached the word grace. If you remember the phrase was, by the grace of God be gone. So she had gotten to by the grace in my mind. And then I felt an enormous weight in my mind and body pinning me to the mattress and slowing time. So I could hear myself trying to form the phrase like someone was dialing down the speed on a record player. So it was like, by the that kind of thing. At the same time, a chorus of sound erupted above me, around me. It seemed like 40 voices, male and female, swooping around us in a circle, whooping the whole range of octaves. She explained it to me at the time like, hoo, hoo, ha, ha, like in a big circle. Like you could see, you almost hear where the sound was, which is similar to my experience with the trumpets and the coins.
That's insane.
Yeah. I managed to move my head to face, so she's awake during all this, to face Geordie, who was still asleep, and suddenly she rose in the air.
What? Oh my God! Oh my God!
The voices began to swirl around her, and she began to scream and struggle.
No! Oh my God, did this happen?
Floating about a foot above the fucking bed.
Oh
Excuse my language. She didn't write that, I put that in. Now, in the morning, I'll tell you what I remembered in a minute. Finally, my mind finished the phrase and everything just stopped. Geordie dropped back onto the bed and was able to move again. I was able to move again. She looked at me absolutely terrified and said, she wants me to put out her eyes.
My God!
Yeah.
No!
She says, then we fell asleep. But my recollection of that night was... I'd been terrified most nights. I've been having awful experience most nights. So there was no difference. And yes, I was very cranky with Joe at that time, I remember, because I felt just probably really alone and I was quite grouchy and it was tough, probably because I wasn't sleeping properly.
Yeah.
But I remember the next morning, I got up cranky as all hell and she was just staring at me saying, are we going to talk about last night? And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, the presents. And I got really angry with her. I was like, what the fuck are you on about? I don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, the woman in the room. I was like, I said, Geordie, she said, Geordie, I've got to tell you what happened last night. I said, I don't remember a thing. I didn't remember a thing. I had a really creepy dream where I was saying, I felt that horrible feeling that Pandora mentioned of dread, that morbid chill of impending death. I was sitting in a very dark room with someone and I was saying, go away. Leave me alone. Go away. Leave me alone. But apparently I was screaming those words as I was lifted off the bed, according to Joe.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So somehow there was like some kind of, is it symbiosis or like you were connecting into each other's dreams?
She wasn't asleep, Michelle. She hadn't gone to sleep. She was lying there in the dark. She'd said to me in the morning, I didn't sleep a wink all night. In the story, she says we both fell asleep, but I think she's forgotten the bit that she was just looking at me like, I believe you now. And we couldn't go back into that flat again. We had to sleep upstairs. We had a guy upstairs, Gary, who was our neighbour. And he was a lovely gay man who always had a young chap living with him. He called them houseboys. It wasn't very nice, poor chaps. They were always Scottish as well. Apparently the first one was Jimmy Somerville.
His name wasn't Des, was it?
No, it was Jimmy Somerville. Not Dennis Nielsen.
Not Des.
So
he had the little
little
run
chaps,
away.
Yeah, he said that he used to do the vacuuming around the flat singing, run away, turn away. And he thought it was dreadful. He couldn't believe it. So he sacked him off. And a few weeks later, he was number one on Top of the Pops.
Oh, he missed a trick there.
He did. But Gary, it was always a party at Gary's place. He had some great friends, some wonderful drag queens who were in Oliver. You know, one of them used to be in Oliver. It was amazing, the people we met. But the party never ended. And for Joe and I, we'd have to sleep on the floor because remember, these flats are one-bedders. And we'd have to sleep on the floor in the lounge room. We'd be absolutely exhausted. And he was really into it. That year was the year that Elton John's Sacrifice came out. That one.
Yep.
It's no sacrifice. That one. And it was always on. It drove me nuts. But yeah, that was tough. That was a tough time of my life and clearly Joe's as well. She's never forgotten it. When she told me it again recently, it did put chills in my blood. I went
my
cold.
God.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, do you know what? This story actually reminds me, not of my story, but, well, back in the 90s in Sydney, there was this band of, like, super cute little girls called Phallic Shift. And I knew them. Yeah, I know that was their band name, Phallic Shift. It's a brilliant name. And I knew them because I was working at a record store and I was friends with Sarah, who was in the band. And they were so nice. Like, literally couldn't play their instruments, but it was kind of a little bit punk. They were just really, really nice girls. Just cool girls. Anyway, there were three of them and they moved into a share house. And I wish I could remember the suburb, but I remember this story that they told me, which is they moved into this place and it was amazing. Like one of those beautiful old Sydney homes, you know, like classic.
With the iron lace on the front.
Yeah, all
terraced.
of that. And they could not believe their luck. They just thought they had, you know, like hit the jackpot. And anyway, it was all fantastic until after a few weeks they started hearing weird noises. And then shit kind of got progressively weirder until one night one of the girls, and I can't remember which one, I don't think it was Sarah, I think her name might have been Judith, and she was asleep and she got woken up by this evil demon who was trying to have sex with her.
Ew.
Yes, and she said she felt this weight pinning her down, but also it was like pinning her arms back. it was pulling the covers off her and trying to pull her pants down and literally have demon sex with her. So she freaked out and ran into like one of the other girls' rooms, and they were a bit like, Joe, oh yeah, okay, like not really believing her. And she was terrified. And so the next night she insisted, like, come on girls, you have to sleep in my room with me. And they're like, yeah. So all three of them were in the bed, and again this demon turns up. This time all three of them are like at various points pinned down. They're like, the covers are being ripped off them. They're like having to try and hold on to their pants because this evil demon is literally trying to like get rapey with them.
My God, 3 girls are experiencing this at once.
Yes, and they weren't asleep, so they say. And even if they were, like, it is this connected experience at all three of them. And they were completely freaked out, and they managed to like free themselves from this bed, ran out of the house, got in the car, drove around until sunup, went back, packed up their shit, and never went back to that house.
Got the hell out, yeah.
But just awful.
No.
And she came in and told me, and she was fucking terrified telling me about this story. And I really believed her because she was so scared, you know. So, yes. Watch out for the rapey ghost.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
What the hell could it be? I mean, can it be? At the time I was looking into it, thinking, people were telling me all sorts of things. You know, I ended up sleeping most of the time over at the vicarage after that, and I had some girlfriends over there who were quite spiritual, and they would say it's things like it's an echo from another dimension that was mentioned. I mean, I don't really know, but I looked into it recently, and I think you looked into something similar, and carbon monoxide poisoning came up, something which we didn't even know about that you could die from.
No.
And often it can be the cause of all sorts of hallucinations. It can be linked to haunted houses, and it has been since the 1920s. And there's evidence from a research group led by Olaf Blank, which shows the brain can trick people into feeling the presence of a ghostly apparition. Carbon monoxide is odourless and colourless and produced when you have a gas leak in your home. The silent killer can be breathed in without you even knowing it's there. Symptoms include dizziness, nausea, tiredness and confusion, auditory hallucinations, as well as shortness of breath. But I don't think we actually experienced any of those things. It's more likely to have been the drugs, to be honest. There's an interview with the radio show This American Life with a toxicologist called Albert Donnet, and he said, carbon monoxide poisoning can cause all manner of hallucinations, audio, visual, feeling strange things on their skin, and when there was nothing there. People often report that they hear noises in their ears, bells ringing and rushing sounds. But no pants pulling down is mentioned there.
And no sheets flying off them. I mean, I have read this too, that carbon monoxide poisoning can be super serious. But also there are other things too, like infrasound.
Yes, so, I've got that here.
Yeah, low frequency sound waves that can really like fuck with your mind and cause feelings of like discomfort and vibrations in your body, and also like connected to the electromagnetic field around you, but also that's part of your body. I'm speaking like I know what I'm talking about. Really don't.
Well, but I have a little example here of infrasound that I've got.
Oh,
you
please.
Might not have it.
No, I don't know it.
An example where contemporary pieces of live music were laced with infrasound, and the audience were then asked to describe their reactions to the music. More unusual experiences were reported when infrasound was present. So chills down the spine, feeling nervous, waves of fear and uneasy or sorrowful emotions. Could it also be that awful chill of impending doom?
Maybe. But then you had mentioned something on last week's podcast about Incubus Succubus. And it's such a horrible word, succubus. It's like you just want to suck you. I don't know. It's not nice.
Well,
but I think this is a little. That's probably Incubus was the one that tried to rape my friend Sarah.
Girls. Yeah. Okay. There's all those beautiful paintings, isn't there, of the incubus sitting on the lady's chest, very gothic. Yeah. It's like a little creature sitting on her dress, and she's lying there, ravaged in her nightgown.
God, whenever you say that, I always just remember all the goths in Canberra. My God. Do you know, with the like white pancake makeup and oh gosh.
grimly fiendish. It might be 40 degrees hot outside, but they've got those velvet coats and their high-necked Victorian.
Yep.
Oh,
Dripping
so
that
much
pancake
fun.
makeup off right into that velvet.
So if you want to talk about incubus and succubus, or incubi, an incubus is a fiend in male form who, according to myth and legend, will lie upon a sleeping woman in order to engage in sex acts, usually to rape and impregnate their victim so as to introduce a baby that's half demon into the world. The victim may not be aware that this is going on night after night until her health suddenly deteriorates.
And she gives birth to a baby.
And she hosts the incubus's parasitic baby, or she dies from exhaustion.
Oh my God, she'd be... No,
yes, you're right, Michelle.
No.
The female version is called the succubus.
Okay. Oh God.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of
the crucible.
That just reminds me of a little suckling baby or something.
Sucking pig.
Yeah.
The earliest fictional account is called the Epic of Gilgamesh. Do you remember? La 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 la.
Yeah,
the Smurfs.
yeah.
That was
Gilgamesh.
the baddie's name, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course.
From ancient Mesopotamia. That is regarded as the earliest surviving great work of literature and the second oldest religious text after the pyramid texts.
Okay.
Getting a bit historical here. Not hysterical.
In
it, Gilgamesh's father is an incubus. So Gilgamesh, whoever he is
spawn of demons.
Spawn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So how they do it is, want to hear?
Yeah.
This is how they do it. They put their victim into a trance so they cannot move or call for help, and they have their wicked fun. The idea of such creatures has been told through the ages by many different cultures. In the German Alps, there's a vampiric creature known as the Nachtseher. Nachtseher.
Nachtseher. Okay.
Nachtseher. But this guy is said to be created from suicide as it feeds off the dead body.
Ew.
Also, if a plague has been through a village, the originator or first to die is known as the Nachtseher. So surely is that the same? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if he's a incubus, but okay. So, but he only comes during sleep.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
because do you remember a few years back? And I've never seen these movies. Paranormal Activity.
No. I did see one of them. Yes.
Okay, so there's some actress in that, Natasha Blazik. She was in the second one, Paranormal Activity 2, and she was on This Morning with Philip Schofield, and she was on there saying that she'd had sex with a ghost.
Ew.
Twice. And he was there saying, so you had actual penetrative sex with a ghost, and she's like,
Philip, God,
creep. And she was
only
there
10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, she was there just going, yeah. And she said hands were pushing against her will, and she could feel the weight of like something on top of her. And then she said she could feel the energy, and then she was very confused, and then she relaxed. And then it was very, very pleasurable. Yes!
She said that on the morning show.
She said that. She did. And then he came back and they did it again a month later.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
I bet the producers are there like, cut, go to commercial.
I bet all her marketing team are like, yeah. And then he said something creepy at the end, like, oh, I hope that ghost shows up for another lovely time or something. Like,
oh, Philip.
I know, Philip. But, I wonder if that is somehow connected to this sleep paralysis idea. Incubus, and also, it's such a gross word, nocturnal emissions. I.e. sleep orgasm. Because really,
wet dream.
If she's having a good time, like, I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do it with a ghost if it's going to be a fun time?
I just had to have a very big gulp of my Bloody Mary there.
God.
So shocked.
Yes.
Well, sleep paralysis is a thing, so much so that I found some information about that on the NHS Direct website.
NHS has it. Bloody hell.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. 11% of the population is affected by sleep paralysis. And it's kind of what I think you were experiencing last week when you said Andreas had gotten up and creaked on a floorboard and said, it's raining. And you went, what? And he was fast asleep next to you. According to NHS Direct, it is normal to hallucinate during sleep paralysis, and you are advised not to worry about it.
Okay.
You may feel as though someone is in your room or pushing you down. These feelings and the fear can last several minutes, but you are in sleep mode and you will not be able to move. So basically what your brain does when you're asleep is it shuts everything down. You cannot move.
Okay.
But if your eyes are open,
yeah,
because I know some people in my family sleep with their eyes open, my daughter and my husband, it's quite distressing.
That's not good.
He gets eye infections sometimes because of it.
Oh, poor
big googly eyes, he hasn't got enough eyelid to go over it.
Poor Bats. We love you, Patty.
So you're in sleep mode and you can't move, and your brain is active and your eyes are open, so you'll experience dreaming as hallucinations instead. Sleep paralysis is linked with insomnia, disrupted sleep patterns. So, for example, shift workers, people who haven't had proper sleep, maybe people who've been taking a lot of drugs recently. Jet lag's a good one.
Yeah, okay.
Narcolepsy, PTSD, general anxiety, panic disorder, or a family history of sleep paralysis. Avoid sleeping on your back, they say, as it exacerbates the experience.
Okay.
Blimey. According to some websites, sleep paralysis can be the cause of people believing they have an incubus or a succubus, an alien abduction, or astral traveling, which is looking down on yourself as you leave your body.
Oh, well, yeah. I've had people, I know people who have done that. Yeah. Gaelic Bill.
It happens more than we think.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, one of the lovely chaps from Zermatt here, a real character, Bill, he astral traveled a lot when he was a kid, would lose his, just fly out of his body. This is when he was around 5 years old, he said. And then one day, it was so fun, he loved doing it, and then one day he went to go back into his body, couldn't get back in. Oh. Yeah. His body had been taken over by... he thought it was a demon. He said it was a very upsetting presence. And
how old was he when this happened?
Around 5, maybe 6, he said. And he didn't really understand what to do. Somehow he managed to get back into his body, and he said he'd never really done it since because it was absolutely real and absolutely terrifying. But I wish he'd been able to tell this story because he is fantastic. What a storyteller. And Bill, if you're listening to this, let me record you one day because you are brilliant. But anyway, moving right along.
Okay. Well, it happens more often than we think, and it's more likely to happen when we are waking up. During REM sleep, dreaming takes place and the brain stem paralyzes the body by inhibiting motor neurons. Occasionally, this happens while a person is conscious. So basically, it's just our big old brains going a little bit cray-cray and not being able to kind of compute what the hell's going on.
So we're not possessed, according to them.
According to the NHS, we're not possessed. So you can't ring up and say, my friend's just been lifted off the bed and she's very stressed out. They might say, well, she's got sleep paralysis. But then what do you say to the friend who's witnessed all this?
And what do you say to the friend whose
pants have been ripped off by a monster?
Yeah, and then bloody enjoys it. What do you say to her? Woo!
Dirty girl.
No, I mean, but I think the interesting thing here is that when there's a crossover between the two people who are looking at it and experiencing it, and they're experiencing the same thing, because that's not just one person.
Yes, that is unexplained. I think.
There you go, supernatural, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just stress.
On this occasion, Michelle, because I experienced it myself, I will agree with that one. It's unexplained, but it is definitely supernatural.
Yeah. Because this reminds me also of a story, and I tell this to my sister's kids all the time. They love it. My ex-boyfriend, Blake, I can't remember if it was him or his brother. One of them was asleep, lying in bed, woke up because they felt a very heavy presence on the end of the bed, like somebody had sat down. Opened their eyes, looked, and there was this old lady looking back at them, and she just put her fingers to her lips and went, shh. No, but really, and he was freaked out.
No, I'm not laughing at that experience. I'm laughing at you.
At my face. And she went, shh.
Going, no, it's very sweet, Michelle. Well done.
But I mean, And
chilling.
he was terrified. It was a very scary experience and very real. But yes, maybe just sleep paralysis.
I have heard that before
From me.
from lots of different places. Not from you, from other people. Not that very same, but very similar experiences. I think there's quite a few people have experienced that, and quite often they put it down to a guardian angel. Like it's the same person every time, the same presence, and it's usually an old person, like a grandparent. Maybe it's a great grandparent. Sometimes they put it down to. I mean, I'm talking anecdotally here, clearly, because I've not experienced that.
Me either. More than Andreas.
Usually they're not a scary person.
Yeah. Well, Andreas is not scary.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't he was dead to the world. Poor little thing. No, what?
You called your fiance poor little thing.
Oh, no, but I feel like I take the piss out of him. He won't listen to this podcast, so he'll never hear it anyway.
Well, he doesn't support this. He does not give
He
his
said
approval.
it was not his cup of tea. He doesn't even drink tea.
Well, it's not going to be everyone's.
He's a coffee drinker. He said he hears me talking
Even
enough
more
at
offensive.
home. Just rude. Rude.
Well, you know what? It's a good outlet for us both, isn't it? To be able to just talk and talk and talk. And you have to bloody listen if you've joined us, Then sorry about that.
Guys.
But
no, but all of this talk, especially all the erotic stuff, it really reminds me of. Do you remember that scene in Kill Bill?
You'll have to remind me which particular scene.
Okay, the one where let's see, Uma Thurman. She's in it. She is. I did actually have a couple of notes.
The bride.
Yes, that's it. She was the bride.
Yeah. Yes, I knew that.
Oh.
Is it a pub quiz?
No.
What are we doing?
Okay, ready. So it reminds me of the coma sex scene in Kill Bill. Uma Thurman.
Oh, yes, because what happened? He came in and shot the place up.
No, worse than that. She is in a coma for years. And the creepy hospital worker is selling her body for sex while she's in a coma to other dudes. And he's having sex with her as well. And then she wakes up when this guy is molesting her. And then she kills him. And then the hospital worker knocks on the door and is like, "Hey, stud, time's up." And he goes in. She's not in the bed. Dude is not lying in the bed. He's lying in a pool of blood. And she then stabs him in the ankle and he hits his head on the ground. And then she has a flashback to him saying, "Hey, I'm Burke and I'm here to fuck." And then she's like, "Oh my God, this is also the guy that's been molesting me." And then she slams his head between the door and the wall and kills him.
Oh,
fucking amazing. But how creepy.
That's horrific. That
so terrible.
Makes me feel very uncomfortable, I have to say.
I hope it does. It's not going to make you feel good.
I'm not loving that.
No, but she was...
I watched that film. How come I don't remember?
It was burned into my brain, that scene. It was terrible.
Perhaps I had my eyes shut. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I shut my eyes and block my ears and wait for it to all be over.
But do you like scary movies? I'm not into them.
No, I don't.
No, I don't. It was all...
And super violence, I can't bear
me
that
either.
sometimes.
I put it down to Jen letting us watch all those movies when we were kids.
What, you've had burnout?
Well, Evil Dead as a child.
Oh, I never watched anything like that.
No. Oh, I did have another thing on Incubus Succubus, actually. So, when I was doing some research on Incubus Succubus, I found this story, and I'm trying to find it now because I did write it down. It was about summoning an incubi. So you can actually call one to you. And it was from this website called PS.
I just need to rectify something here. An incubi, it's an incubus or several incubi.
Oh, okay. So what?
Sorry, Michelle.
She wanted a party.
So she wanted the incubi to come.
She wanted ghost demon party. So
oh God.
So anyway, she was this journalist and she was researching, and then she found this one called summoningsuccubus.com. Doesn't exist anymore.
Don't you do it.
I clicked on it. It didn't. It went nowhere, and it went to one of those holding pages where you have all the weird adverts for Viagra and stuff.
Creepy.
Anyway, so it was this occult master called Eric von Roth, and you could enter your email address, and then you get weekly steps to summon your own incubus. So she was like, "Okay, I'm going to do it." So the first one was, "Are you succubus material?" And I think she must mean incubus here. But anyway, she says, I was worried because I didn't realize there was even possibility of ghost rejection. And then you had to fill out a questionnaire and then ask whether or not you'd prefer a succubus or an incubus. And I guess that's fair enough, because if you're gay, you might want lady succubus. Yep. And then it says, for what purpose do you wish to summon a sexual spirit? And there was an option for long-term friendship.
What?
And then there are more questions about, like, sexual preference, like, what are the characteristics that are important to me in my spiritual lover?
This is a demon dating site.
It is. It's demon Tinder. And then there was something like, oh, how much do you think this will take? And then she was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. And she didn't. And she didn't go through with it. But I was like, no, man, I'm going to sign up to this. And it was gone. It was gone. But then I feel like, oh, if you do something like that, are you like, asking for it in a bad way? Like, are you opening a portal which you don't want to open?
It's funny, I like to think of myself as being a bit more kind of inquiring and looking at both sides and things, but I would never even tempt that.
No, it is tempting fate, isn't it?
And that's because I've got a little bit of superstition going on.
Me too. I mean, I'm too much of a scaredy cat to do anything like that. But I would click. I don't think I'd give my email address, but I clicked to see if it still existed. Sadly, no. So anyone out there who's listening who wants to summon their own demon lover, you have to find another way. You'll have to find another way.
Oh, what a shame.
I know, but I thought, oh, poor old Eric von Roth. I wonder where he is now.
Well,
with his own succubus. Get in touch. And give us Jack Nicholson's email. No, poor old Jack.
Oh, mate. Well, that was a thrilling ride. I tell you, it feels really good to get that off my chest.
Me too. And as long as it wasn't an incubus on your chest, I'm sure you feel much better. No.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are we going to attempt an outro today?
Jesus Christ. All right. Okay, maybe.
We're concerned.
We are concerned. Spotify, if you're listening to this and you think we're doing something wrong, sorry. We don't know what the rules are, but we're going to do this anyway.
Well,